United States of America. I think that's the second time this week we've done it. Go, President Biden. Why is President Biden not going? It's not good. That's not good. President Biden, gotta go. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Come on.
On Wednesday night, you get a chance to give me a call. Nothing urgent. Just want to talk to you. I thought the article, at least the thing online, is going to be printed tomorrow in the Times, was good. I think you're clear.
All right, folks, welcome to GAMcast for July the 7th, 2022. A little bit of a rainy day in Atlanta. Got a lot to news to talk about, including that voicemail that was on Hunter Biden's laptop. We're going to tell you why what we're seeing here on the screen, if you're watching us on the YouTube. Peter Weitzer says Joe and Hunter Biden are headed to prison after smoking gun voicemail. No, they're not. Spoiler alert, that ship has sailed. We're going to talk about that. We're going to bring you up to speed on the latest Wall Street Journal article about the red states versus the blue states. We're going to debunk the latest hoax from the New York Times about Trump and the IRS. We're going to talk about the Gallup poll and a bunch of other things if we can get to it. It is a very slow news day out there. There's really not a whole lot being talked about. Sort of the IRS Trump thing, which we'll get to in a few minutes, is probably the biggest thing. And one other thing I'm going to cover, I've had this in the can all week and I had a chance to cover. I'm also going to cover the Independent Legislature Doctrine, so you know what that is. And if you want to get a more detailed, I'll say this again when I get to it. But if you want to get a more detailed analysis of that, we've got I think it's about 20 minutes on that up at our YouTube page. You can take a look at it. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, you're going to have to go to the YouTube page. So anyway, so let's go ahead and just debunk this. I'm going to read. It's a little bit hard to hear, and we had the technical difficulties to start. For whatever reason, the video wouldn't run. Anyway, here's the text, or here's the text of the actual voicemail that Biden left. Hey, pal, it's Dad. It's about 8:15 on Wednesday night. If you have a chance, give me a call. Nothing urgent, just wanted to talk to you. I thought the article released online, it's going to be printed tomorrow in the Times, was good. I think you're clear. Now, folks, people are saying that, well, wait a minute, you said you didn't discuss your business dealings with Hunter Biden. You said this, and I could have played the video, everybody's heard it by now, where the token that is now the person that's supposedly the White House press secretary is up there, and she said she wasn't going to answer any questions about the laptop, and she doesn't, folks, there's nothing to see here. I wish there were. God only knows, folks. We are the mature ones, and we have to face facts. The facts are, until the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Democrats want to talk about Hunter's laptop, it's not going to be talked about. And until they want to talk about it, there's not going to be any prosecutions. We all knew this story from the beginning when the New York Post broke it, right? And it didn't go anywhere. And Biden was allowed to, basically hang out in his basement all day and run and get elected president of the United States. These people don't believe in the rule of law. They don't believe in reality. They don't believe in elections, folks. And I'm sorry to have to tell you that, but it's just the truth. So one of the reasons why they have gotten to this point, and let's jump right into this Wall Street Journal article. For some reason, I'm able to get the Wall Street Journal article. I was really surprised because I'd heard about this story, and I thought, well, I won't be able to get it because it's behind a paywall. And you know me, I'm not going to pay for a paywall. It's another interesting thing, too, I've noticed. Leftist publications tend to be very, very in favor of the firewall. Most of your sort of conservative or libertarian or Republican, whatever you want to call it, tend not to be. And that's not a coincidence. And the reason is they don't know any other way to make money. They're not going to make money in sort of a freedom way where, look, we'll give you stuff for free and then we'll advertise and make money on it. No. You are going to pay them money, and then they're going to give you whatever they give you. And you're going to, it's like, Caddyshack. You'll get nothing and like it. Anyway, so I guess they're giving this away. I don't know why, but they are. Anyway, so red states are winning the post-pandemic economy. Workers and employers moved away from the coast to middle of country and Florida, sparking swifter recoveries there. Now, that's actually not true, and everybody knows that that's not true. But anyway, that is one of the things that's happening, right? A lot of people have left the blue states and what they did during the pandemic, and they've come to red states. That's why I think I'm still optimistic that the Republicans will take the Senate in November. I'm very optimistic they'll take the House. I'm optimistic they'll take the Senate. And the main reason I think they are is some of the states that they're battling for are going to be a little redder than people think. Right now, you look at the polls, and the polls are just garbage because I've told you before about polls. Polls, very seldom do they actually reflect what people are thinking. Most of the time, they reflect whatever the pollster wants you to believe or whatever thing they want to accomplish. So, for example, there was a poll about, 2 weeks ago showing Herschel Walker down 10 to Warnock and Kemp tied with Stacey Abrams. Now, that can't be, folks. There's just no way. There's no way that people are going to go vote for Kemp over Abrams, but then they're not also going to vote for Walker. And even assuming there's a little bit of a delta there, and I think if there's a delta at all, it's going to be in favor of Walker. I think Walker will outperform Kemp in November, if anything. But setting it aside, let's say I'm a little off on that. Let's say I'm wrong about that. Maybe say there's a delta, and let's say the delta could go to Kemp, right? Because he's basically a little stronger candidate, and he's an incumbent. Let's say he gets the delta. No way it's 10, folks. Come on, it's not 10. And it was a time when, and I forget who the pollster that ran the poll, wouldn't try to pull that nonsense because people have common sense. When we get the New York Times story about Trump, I didn't even need to read the headline before I could debunk it. And we'll get to it. But anyway, there was a time when people were just, you got to keep it in the road. We can influence, but we can only influence a few points. We can't try to give like 10 points to a candidate, right? We can't run somebody who's basically brain dead and then on top of him being brain dead, leave him in the basement after 12 every day. You can't do that. Now they've proven they can. So you're going to get a lot more of this. But anyway, a lot of these states are going to be redder than people think. I think Georgia's going to be redder than it otherwise would have been, but for the pandemic. So it'll be good if that happens. But let's read a little bit in this article. I want you to understand one point, and then we're going to move on. The pandemic has changed the geography of the American economy. By many measures, red states, those that lean Republican, have recovered faster economically than Democrat-leaning blue ones, with workers and employers moving from the coast to the middle of the country in Florida. Folks, I didn't misread that. I do not say the word Democratic. I know what they want to call. I grew up, and I've been following politics for 45 plus years. It was always the Democrat Party. About 20 years ago, they decided they wanted to be the Democratic Party, because they are very good with words, but I'm not going to do it. There'd always be the Democrat Party to me, so I read it the way it's supposed to be written. Anyway, since February 2020, the month before the pandemic began, the share of all U.S. jobs located in red states has grown by more than half a percentage point, according to analysis of the Labor Department data by the Brookings Institution think tank. Brookings is a very left-wing think tank. Again, Great American Mail, we go to the left wing. Wall Street Journal's left wing. I know a lot of you are saying, no, they're not. Maybe their opinion page isn't, but the Wall Street Journal, the actual news section, is just as left as maybe not quite as left as the New York Times, but close. Red states have added 341,000 jobs over that time, while blue states are still short 1.3 million jobs as of May. Now, those of you who are watching on the YouTube, I'm going to scroll down to another graphic. But before we get down to that graphic, and I'll tell you what it says for those of you listening to the podcast, folks, that just basically tells you that the red states have added 341,000 jobs since pandemic, and they're still down. Because you got to understand, you probably should have added, and I didn't have a chance to look it up, but you probably should have added a couple of million jobs from February 2020 to February 2020, almost 2.5 years. We're probably down in terms of what we would normally grow at, a couple million jobs even in the red states like the free state of Georgia, right? But understand that's at least getting, you're way ahead of where you should be. I want you to also understand that the blue states are bigger, and they're down 1.3 million jobs. So they're down the 1.3 million that they lost, and they're down the however millions they would have grown by normal levels. Now, again, this is how you know this is a left-wing publication here, because they would normally tell you that and explain that to you, which they did. And I want to make sure you understood that. But anyway, this puts the lie to what Biden says all the time, because let me do some math here. 1.3 million minus 340,000. Let's just round it to 3. Carry the 1. Let's see. I don't have a calculator handy, but I'm pretty sure you're down 1 million jobs just by simple math right here. You're still down 1 million jobs from February of 2020. And, folks, we all know we're down many more millions because we should have created jobs all that time. So next time you hear, I wish I could call him that name, but a longtime listener of the show complained, and I had to apologize. He was right. I was wrong. I'm not trying to take the apology back, but that name just really is appropriate for Joe Biden. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, so I want you to come down, and if you're on the YouTube, where is it? Okay, here. We are looking now at the pandemic recovery. It's a graph. Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Arizona, and Texas, they have all gotten back to their pre-pandemic economies. All of them, right? Now, we're looking at the next graph. If you're on the YouTube, you can see this for yourself. If you're on the podcast, New Jersey, Massachusetts, California, Illinois, and New York. Not one single solitary one of those 5 has gotten back to their pre-pandemic levels. I mean, it's tough to read it, but it looks to me like they're all at about, New Jersey's done the best. New Jersey looks like she's about 90%. The others look like they're around 80, 85. Anyway, you can go check out this article. As I said, it's not behind a paywall, but I wanted you to make sure you knew of that. So Juan Williams is in the news. He was in the news on Monday, but we didn't broadcast on Monday because we actually love America. We're going to get to the Gallup poll. Don't worry. I wasn't going to forget about it. We're going to get that poll. We're in that group of people, the 38% of people that are extremely proud to be Americans. So you're darn right. We've celebrated July 4th. But anyway, Juan Williams, we talked about Juan Williams on the show. You know what it means, but we pick up new listeners. We've been picking up some new people on YouTube, which is good. Folks, Juan Williams, his job is to every couple of weeks or so give all the Democrats their marching orders. This is what you will talk about, and this is the way you will talk about it. Now, Juan Williams isn't a particularly bright fellow, and he doesn't do a particularly good job of writing. But you still should read Juan Williams, and this is why he gets a spot on the show every time he pushes an article. He should be paying me for this. But because Juan Williams will tell you what they're thinking. So it's good to read it. So let's figure out real quickly here what it is. And again, Juan Williams is exactly what the left has become. I followed pretty much his entire career. He used to be on NPR, right? And he had a spot bit there, and then he made a mistake of saying some things about the Arabs during the 9/11 era, and they bumped him, and he went over to Fox. And he actually, had a little bit of a gig going well at Fox, and then eventually had to leave there because he just can't set aside his emotions and be rational. He's exactly the personification of a leftist. But the other thing you notice about Juan Williams is he didn't used to be crazy. Right now, he's just full-on crazy. He just writes whatever he wants, whatever it is. The reality is what he wants it to be, not what it is. So anyway, let's see what we're supposed to be talking about if we're Democrats this week. Here is a question for Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine. Which one of you is lying? Collins said Kavanaugh misled her when he was a nominee. He told her he was a don't rock the boat kind of judge on abortion rights. What about Collins? Is she playing liar's poker? Can anyone believe she didn't know all of President's nominees, including Kavanaugh, had strong backing from fierce opponents of abortion rights? Okay. All right. When he ran for president, Trump said openly, I am putting pro-life justices on the court. Trump is the only president to appear in person for the March for Life, the premier anti-abortion rally. He declared himself the strongest opponent for abortion ever in the White House. He even accused Democrats of being willing to execute a baby after birth. Is it possible Collins missed all this? Senator Joe Manchin is in the same trap. Of course, he's a Democrat from West Virginia. Now, let me go ahead and debunk this real quickly. I'm like Neo in the Matrix here. By the way, a couple of y'all have reached out and said, how come you're not doing the little movie bits and little cartoon bits and things you used to do? Well, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. I'll tell you why. Because big tech is in the pocket of the fascists, and they have shut down the YouTube. I sit there and I watch it. People are downloading it, and it'll just sit there. I'm like, I guess people didn't like the show today. Then I'll go onto my YouTube account, and it'll say, oh, there's a copyright strike. We had to shut you down. And it's the same thing I've told you before. I'm not violating the copyright. It takes me about 2 minutes to appeal it, and I've got a form statement I put out saying this is why this is not a copyright violation, and the computer immediately reverses it. Of course, I've lost a bunch of downloads in that meantime. So anyway, it's just not worth the hassle. But again, it just brings up the point of why we're fighting these people, all right? They're basically preventing me from doing as good a content as I would like to do or I would do, right? And it's making me change the way I do things. It's purposeful. They know again, I've said it a million times. If Pop Warner, whatever Warner it is, you know what I'm talking about, or CBS or ABC, whoever it is, they want to come sue me. It's on my Twitter profile. It's everywhere. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. You can come get me. Come sue me. Right? But they don't have to do that because anyway, I digress. You get the point. I want you to know that. Anyway, so probably not going to have a lot of any of those in the future unless we go back to the other format, which I doubt. So anyway, let's debunk this real quickly. All right, folks. President Reagan in 1980, Roe v. Wade was 1973. Reagan ran for president in 68, 76, and he was successful in 1980. He said two things as to the Supreme Court. One, I'm going to nominate the first women. Number two, I'm going to nominate pro-life judges. And everybody knew every single solitary one of his justices was pro-life. Everybody knew every single solitary one of his justices, right, thought Roe v. Wade was garbage. Not one of them voted to overturn it. So I hate to tell you this, Juan. You know that because you were covering and you were in politics at the time. So nobody lied. Not to mention, where is the lie? We're halfway through your stupid article and you haven't said the lie. He said he's a don't rock the boat kind of judge. So far, Kavanaugh has not been he has been a don't rock the boat kind of judge. I mean, none of his rulings, other than voting to reverse Roe v. Wade, is in any way rock the boat. So you can't just get one with one. So I don't know what Juan Williams is talking about. And again, just so I have got skin in this game and you understand that, those of you who hadn't been listening too long, if you go to our Substack page, greatamericanmail.substack.com, M-A-I-L, not M-A-L-E, not M-A-L-E, it'll take you to ether, greatamericanmail.substack.com. Right? If you look at the link tree, if you're on YouTube, go click the link tree. It's in there. I've got a single issue podcast up there, basically walking you through Roe v. Wade. You want to know the history of Roe v. Wade, just like a law student does. It's about 30 minutes. It'll walk you through privacy, Roe v. Wade, the whole bit. And at the end of that bit, and those of you who've listened to the podcast for a long time know this, I predicted this Supreme Court would not overrule Roe v. Wade. So let me tell you something, folks. I don't get fooled a lot when it comes to politics. So they fooled me too. I don't know what Juan Williams is talking about. But again, the point of this is, okay, this article, again, is the marching orders. So one, you're to know that justices lied, right? You're to know that Republicans also apparently Joe Manchin's evil. He fell for the lies. And it's to let you know we're going to talk about abortion for this November. That's what you get out of this article, right? There's no real need to read more of this garbage. But that's what this is about. It's all about Trumpian Supreme Court. These are your marching orders. This is what we're going to talk. I don't think it's going to work, folks. And I'll tell you why it's not going to work. And I've waited to see a little bit of this polling data come out. There's a couple things you have to understand about how Roe v. Wade works. The people that are passionate about Roe v. Wade are extremely passionate. But you got two camps there that are extremely passionate. You got the pro-life people that are very passionate, and then you got the pro-life people or pro-abortion people that are very, very passionate, right? But as the electorate as a whole, that group of people that vote exclusively on that issue aren't that big. The other problem they're going to have is that they're not going to have the coat hanger stuff that they used to have 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? They keep saying women are going to die. It's now been a couple weeks. It's a couple more weeks will go by. You're going to see people haven't died. You're going to see the panic is unwarranted, right? And you're going to see people be able to solve this, as I've already said many times. So I don't think it's going to help them, but that's what Juan Williams is meant to do. Those are your marching orders as you go forward for the next couple weeks and then in November. We're to talk about Roe v. Wade. We're to talk about justices that lied. Okay, and again, I've debunked that too many times. They didn't lie. All of them basically dodged the question, which again, I've told you, and again, if you're listening on YouTube, I think it's our first ever video. In fact, I know it's our first ever video, how Joe Biden ruined the confirmation process. I think it's about 20 minutes. Go check it out. He's the architect. It was him after he borked Bork, right? When Bork got borked, right? No more justices. Every justice after Bork, 1987, that came forward said, "Oh, I can't answer that question. Oh, I can't answer that question. Oh, I can't answer that question." All because Biden had to take out Bork. But again, Biden is what he is. All right. So if you're watching on the YouTube, you are now seeing a picture of a black woman, on the beach in looks like a gold bathing suit, and her name is Tiara Mack. And I wasn't really going to cover the Tiara Mack story that much. You've probably heard about it. She is a state senator from the state of Rhode Island, and she has this video that if you're on the YouTube, you're going to be able to watch it. If you're listening on the podcast, I'm not sure you'll even be able to hear it, but we'll see. We'll try to work through that. But anyway, she's 5'6" or 7". She's in a gold bathing suit. She's on a beach. She's going to do a headstand, which is pretty impressive actually, and then she's going to twerk at the camera. And so it sounded and looked something like this. That's her twerking upside down on the beach.
Vote Senator Mack.
And this is supposed to vote Senator Mack. She is the incumbent senator from Rhode Island, the 6th District of Rhode Island. So when the story broke, I wasn't going to cover it because it's not what we do here. We're a little bit more serious show. We give you the news that you need to know to understand what's going on in about 40 minutes or less, right? And this isn't really something you need to know. I mean, is it really important that there's some nut job out there that somehow thinks that twerking upside down on a beach is some reason to vote for you? Like, I thought about it. Well, it's Rhode Island. I mean, Rhode Island, I would think that'd be a little bit more of a buttoned-up population. But, yeah, I really didn't work too much about it until the reaction. The reaction of the media has basically been, we're all trolls for noticing it. Okay, so then it became something I do. So I went ahead and I looked her up. So Well, first I looked up her district, as you know, because I'm into stuff like that, right? I like numbers. So the population of the 6th district in Rhode Island is 28,400 people. It's 47.9% male, 52.1% female. It is 28% black, or 28% white, 19.1% black, 4.9% Asian. Looks like another 1.6 of people they somehow break up into different categories. I don't know. I don't care. And it's 48.8% Hispanic. Now, when I looked that up, I thought to myself, wow, I don't think twerking upside down is going to go over with Hispanic folks. You know, I think she might be in a little bit of trouble, but who knows? So I went to her Twitter feed to just check out who this person is. And now you're looking at her Twitter feed. And you're going to hear her video in a moment. So this is Tiara Mack, Senator for Rhode Island District 6. She identifies as she, her with her pronouns. She's a queer educator, okay? Anyway, so again, I'm not really sure why the people of the 6th District of Rhode Island think that's important, but let's go ahead and listen to her campaign thing here, and you're going to start to, by the way, also looked her up. She's 28 years old. This is going to be important when you hear this. So here's her campaign ad. Take a listen.
Growing up, I didn't see many people who looked like me in politics.
It's not supposed to do that. I don't know why we're having technical difficulties today. Normally we don't have that. Let me try to correct that while we're doing this. This is why I don't like this. All right. Oh, there we go. See if that fixes it. Let me try it again. Here is Tiara Mack and her campaign video.
Growing up, I didn't see many people who looked like me in politics. I didn't know that people...
Okay, growing up, she didn't see many people that look like her. All right, folks, she's 28 years old. It's 2022. That means she was born in 1994. Now, I've been following politics, right, very, very closely since, middle 70s, okay? Yeah, I'm going to call shenanigans on that. There's no way from 1990, that's when she was born, folks. Her formative years would have been 2002, 2003, 2004, depending on how interested in politics she was. Who was elected president in 2008 when she was 14? Who would have been running for president? Who would have been a senator in Illinois when she was 6? Right? Oh, the one, right? Barack Obama. There weren't many people that looked like her. The flipping president of the flipping United States. Folks, this stuff is just, anyway, let her continue.
Backgrounds like mine, who shared the same stories as my family and community, could have a seat at a state house table. Last year, working on the Reproductive Privacy Act, out of hundreds of people in the crowds, I could name the 5 people who looked like me. Growing up in a low-income community, I remember watching my mom make the decision between paying for rent or paying for groceries, facing an eviction notice or keeping the lights on.
Now, folks, again, I hate to do this, but she opened the door, as they say, as trial lawyers say. I'm not the thinnest guy in the world, okay? I put on a little bit of weight over COVID. I've got some of it off and still working on some rest of it. But, folks, she is not a thin person. She doesn't look like she's ever missed a meal in her entire life. Now, that's just an outright lie. And, again, this is something that, again, in her case, she's an example of like the AOCs of the world. I honestly believe that she believes this. Now, I'm sorry. I mean, my nieces, they think there's a boogeyman under the bed. And they sincerely believe it, you see. And I understand, they're children and they're scared of the dark and all this. But I don't substantiate that. I explain to them that they're not. I get a flashlight, and we're going to look under there and see. We all can see it's not. They're very happy to have it verified, and they accept it. We move on. We've reached a point in our lives where people get to believe whatever we want, and people have to substantiate it. Now, folks, I do not believe she grew up in Rhode Island, right? I know she didn't. She was born in 1994. The idea that America doesn't have a social safety net is a lie. It's always been a lie. And there was a time when our social safety net was a little bit lower than some of the ones in Europe. That is not even really the case anymore. So don't give me this nonsense about having to choose. That is just a falsehood. Right. Anyway, I don't know if I want to cover much more of this, but let me do a little bit because we got other stuff to get to. But here's a little bit more.
I never knew that I could have a voice in the decisions that shaped my community.
Okay, that's it. You know what, folks? I just, again, this whole bit took me about 15 minutes to put together. Just a little bit of research. I mean, we are living in the greatest time for humanity. I remember when you wanted to do something like this, you'd have to go to the library, you'd have to go to the stacks. I mean, it would take you hours to get this kind of information and put it together. It took me about 15 minutes to read all this together and decide how I wanted to cover it. I mean, she's completely full of it. Now, if the people of Rhode Island, if that group of people that I broke down their backgrounds, if they're going to vote just because she's black or just because she's a woman or just because she's queer, whatever that means, then they get what they asked for, right? This person is unqualified to, I mean, literally, to run the local library. Certainly not the district. This is just insanity, literal insanity. And it's all lies, too. I mean, you wonder why things aren't getting done. It's because you have people like that. And then we've got another story in the stack why things aren't getting done. All right, finally, we are to McCabe and Comey. I heard this story this morning, and I heard somewhere, I think I saw it on my Twitter feed or something. Comey and McCabe, who infuriated Trump, both faced intensive IRS audits. The former FBI director and his deputy, both of whom President Donald Trump wanted prosecuted, were selected for a rare audit program that the tax agency says is random. Now, folks, before I tell you, we're going to scroll down a little bit just to prove that they don't have any common sense there at the IRS and that they're just demagoguing. Now, what about McCabe and what about Comey would make you think they might get audited? Now, I've been audited 3 times, so I know a little bit about our IRS audits. I've worked with people who've been audited as well as an attorney. So I know a little bit about ours, but you don't need to know much about it. You just have to have some common sense. What could have possibly happened with McCabe and Comey that they might get additional scrutiny from the IRS? I wonder what it would be. I wonder if it might be a lot of money from a book deal, or I wonder if it might be all of a sudden getting a bunch of money from a commentating job or for speaking arrangements, both of which we all know they got when they were terminated by Trump. Wow, I wonder if that could possibly be what did it. Well, of course that's what did it. You don't even have to. All you have to have is an IQ of about 90 to understand that's obviously why they got audited. But let's just say, you don't have an IQ of 90. You're like 88. You're kind of reaching for that. You're doing all the kinds of things you do to raise your IQ if that's even possible. And you're at 88. Let me help you out further. Let's see. Trump is, he's crazy. He's all these things that they believe. He's an evil person, yada, yada, yada. I'm Trump. I wake up one day. Okay, they are on me like white on rice, right? I can't do anything, and they're not up, And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the guy that I appointed to the IRS because he must have come up for, the other guy must have retired, his term must have been up. I'm going to get that guy, and I'm going to say, hey, you know what I want you to do? I want you to go audit McCabe and Comey, 2 people that I've fired and I've publicly told via the Twitter and everyone else I don't like, right? No. Nobody's plan would be that. You'd have to be a complete imbecile to do that. And Trump is a lot of things. He's not an imbecile, right? Here's the other thing, folks, about all this that's just really crazy, right, is that, again, this is probably what they're going after here. Again, so it's obviously I've already debunked it. I haven't read the article, by the way. We're going to do 2 things today I usually don't do. I do them sometimes, as you've been listening for a while. I haven't read this article yet, so we're going to read it together. And then I've got Mark Elias in the stack here, too. We're going to listen to him, and I'm going to debunk it in real time without having done it before, mainly because I just think that's fun to do, and also because I'm a little bit late today because I had some other things I had to take care of. So among tax lawyers, oh, by the way, one other thing I want to tell you, this is in all likelihood cover a false flag for them to try to get rid of Trump's appointee, because Trump's appointee is still there, by the way. So that's what this is probably all about. But anyway, among tax lawyers, the most invasive type of random audit carried out by the IRS is known only partially jokingly as an autopsy without the benefit of a death. The odds of being selected for that audit in any given year are tiny. Out of 153 million returns filed for 2017, for example, the IRS targeted about 5,000, or roughly 1 out of 30,600. All right, let me debunk that for you real quickly, folks. About 99.9999999% of people file a simple 1040 EZ, okay? So if you get rid of them, what you would find is you'd have about, 2,000 people file actual returns like I do, where I have to list income and then I have to expenses and all this stuff. You are about, about 1 in 100 chance of getting audited for that. Okay. So let me see. I wonder what would happen if you worked for the FBI and you were filing a 1040 EZ every year, and then all of a sudden you start getting money from a book deal and you start filing money from the FBI. You've got a retirement account probably. You got speaking fees. I wonder what the odds of that are. The New York Times didn't think that was relevant. This little reporter here, what's his name? Michael Schmidt. I don't know how old he is. I don't have time to look him up, but he's probably a baby. He doesn't have time. He's supposed to be a journalist. Didn't even bother to look that up. One of the few received a bureaucratic letter with the news of that his 2000 return would be under intensive scrutiny was James Comey, who had been fired as FBI director that year by President Trump. Furious over what he saw as Mr. Comey's lack of loyalty, blah, 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 says more chance to talk about Trump, more of this. McCabe was later dismissed, more of that. McCabe and Comey. Spouses are also audited. Okay, minuscule changes to the two size ranking. Was it sheer coincidence that the two close associates would randomly come under scrutiny of the same audit within 2 years of each other? Yes, when they both got book deals and they both started getting speaking fees and they both started getting fees to appear on CNN and other places. It sure would. Anyway, so we're about almost through the article, but again, this is how a hoax is done, right? None of this stuff in here is remotely pertinent at all to what you really would want to know. It's just a smear piece. So anyway, if you want to read the entire article, God bless, I'm not going to bother because it's just garbage. And again, folks, this is one of the things since I've been on this journey, since I got on Twitter about August of 2020, I knew it was bad then. I didn't realize the rot was this deep. I mean, there's just nothing remotely factual in this unless, and I don't trust anything they say, but if it's true that they were audited, there's no way anybody was dumb enough to just pick out Comey and McCabe for like a Nixon-style audit. And everybody knows this stuff would have leaked so fast. I mean, Trump's White House was like Swiss cheese. Anyway, all right. You probably haven't heard, because that's why you listen to this podcast, about the Independent State Legislature Doctrine. If you want to know more about the Independent State Legislature Doctrine, if you listen to the podcast, go to the YouTube page. If you're on YouTube, I think it's about 3 videos ago. I've got about 20 minutes to give you a little more detail. But basically, in the Constitution, if you look at it, it basically says the legislatures control how their representatives and their senators are elected. They also control how the electors to the Electoral College go. It does say that Congress can override that, all right? Now, this is what's going on. I wrote an article. If you go to our Substack page, greatamericanmail.substack.com, greatamericanmail.substack.com, I think it's entitled How the Grinch Stole Congress. Anyway, if you go there, you can read it, the article. Mark Elias, who you're about to listen to, here's him on CNN. He's been the general counsel of the last 5 or 6 Democrat campaigns. He was the general counsel for Hillary and all this. He was the architect of all the election changes in 2020. All right, this is the guy who he is one of the most disgusting human beings on the planet. If we had any kind of real justice or rule of law, he would probably be behind bars right now. He was in on Russiagate. He was part of starting Russiagate. You remember he went and testified in that Perkins Coie trial. Anyway, his scheme is basically go out there and try to rig everything he can for Democrats and then whine about the fact that Republicans are rigging elections and threatening democracy. I've not heard this bit. It's about a minute. We're going to debunk it together, see what he's talking about. But anyway, so let me get back to the point. So the Constitution says the legislature said it. Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, the Supreme Court issued a case that said, we're not going to gerrymander anymore. We're not going to do these decisions. The federal courts don't need to be in this business. Stop doing it. Well, Elias still wants to gerrymander, but this is partially why I think the Supreme Court, by the way, has taken this case that they've taken, is Mark Elias, he lacks compunction. He's like some of these people. They just can't keep themselves in the road. If he'd have just gone out and rigged it a little bit here and a little bit there, it'd be no big deal. He goes all in, full bore. And so now the Supreme Court is going, hey, wait a minute, it's too far. What are they doing? All right, here's what they do. North Carolina has a Republican legislature. Pennsylvania has a Republican legislature. He did it with the elections. He went and said, hey, governor of Pennsylvania, just make mail-in voting what it is. Just do it. And then the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which is also heavily Democratic because they're appointed by Democrat governors, they went along with it. And you're sitting there going, wait a minute, but the legislature says how you're supposed to have elections, right? Well, the legislature also redraws the districts, which were done as a result of the 2020 census. Well, Mark Elias goes in there, and if he doesn't like a district, he just runs to the federal court if he can. If he can't go to the federal court, he goes to the Democrat Supreme Court. So he's done that in North Carolina, he's done that in Pennsylvania, done that in a lot of other places. And so people are basically tired of him rigging this system. And so now the Supreme Court is getting ready to take a case that says basically this. The legislature draws the districts. The legislature says how elections are done. We're not going to let you do this game where you go, oh, well, we went to the Supreme Court, which is democratically controlled, and they're saying what you're doing violates the Pennsylvania Constitution or the North Carolina Constitution. So we're going to draw a new district. They're going to say, no, you're not doing that anymore. That's basically what the Independent State Doctrine is all about. Basically that it's the legislature that does it, and you can't usurp it by having a Democrat-controlled Supreme Court basically do it for you, right? That's all what's going on here. But let's hear what he has to say on CNN. Take a listen.
There's a long history, as you and I well know, about voter protections falling to the wayside or never being the point in the long run. You've got Section 5 gone. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act has been diluted. It sometimes looks almost unrecognizable. I mean, what would you do if the Supreme Court hears this case and decides, you know what, that theory works for us?
Yeah, look, this is why this is such a dangerous.
So, folks, Section 5, we've been through it a million times. It was the old thing. It was struck down in 2013 that said that formerly Confederate states had to run their election changes through the Justice Department. It's all garbage. The Supreme Court got rid of it because you now have blacks out registered in these states, and there was no need for it anymore. Not to mention, with litigation the way it works now, DOJ can run to the stupid federal court. They don't need preclearance. Again, this young woman, she looks like she's in her 30s. Elias is a creep and looks like he's probably in his middle 50s. He knows. They both know that. She may not. She's young enough, she may not know that. But anyway, let's see what she's talking about with these independent state legislatures.
Because the Supreme Court has already cut back on the federal remedies. You know, it gutted Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. It has weakened the interpretation of Section 2, as you point out. It has also weakened some of the constitutional arguments that are made to protect voters and ensure free and fair elections. If now it guts entirely the ability of the state courts to hold state legislatures accountable to their own constituents' constitutions, then frankly, there's very little standing between democracy and tyranny.
All right, so here, folks, again, I'm glad I didn't do it beforehand because this is a joke. I mean, it really is a joke. So I already told you the scam. If Republican legislature in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, whatever, he's just figured out what I'll do is if it happens to be controlled by Democrats, I'll just run to them and get them to override what the people wanted. So he literally is sitting there saying, we won't have democracy if I can't get the North Carolina democratically controlled Supreme Court and the Pennsylvania democratically controlled Supreme Court and wherever it is. If I can't get them to override what the people wanted to their legislature, democracy's dead. Folks, if there is probably no more dangerous man in politics today than Mark Elias. And I kid you not, because people are doing this. And I want to also understand that these Democrat elected, quote unquote, judges, folks, the reason people like Ketanji Brown Jackson, people who have these records, the reason Nina Jankowicz and these people get selected, they're no longer bothering to hide what they want to do. They want to go get the Joe Biden. They want to go get the person, Nina Jankowicz. She will be ruthlessly go after you. That's who we want. And we'll get them in there, and they'll do what we want to do. So Mark Elias is just full of it. I mean, what the Supreme Courts are doing in some of these states are basically just completely writing in Democrat-friendly rules, and he's just gone too far. So hopefully the Supreme Court will rule that correctly. They will. All right, a couple more stories, and then we're done for the day. This is the Gallup poll that came out, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that they started measuring extremely very proud to be an American and just, proud to be an American. And you'll see that it has basically slowly gone down over time. And so you see extremely proud starting at about 2000, 87% were proud, 55% were extremely proud. It's gone from 87, 55 in 2000 to 65, 38. Only 38% of Americans are extremely proud to be American. Folks, the reason I wanted you to understand that is it's a steady stream. There's a little bit of a bump up there during the Trump years, and then it's back down again. Folks, this is by design. If they teach you to hate America, then it's faster for them to communism, right? And it just goes to show you this is literally the temperature for the boiling frog. We now see what's going on. So anyway, important for you to know that. The Consumer Finance Bureau out of control under Biden's director, critics say. U.S. Chamber of Commerce warns Consumer Finance Bureau protection needs to be reined in. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce launched a six-figure digital campaign in late June targeting Rohit Chopra, director of Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, appointed by President Biden in 2021 and confirmed without a single Republican vote. The point is here, again, one of these people who is a rabid partisan who's given power tells you two things. These people are ruthless now. They're no longer hiding it. They don't believe in America. They don't believe in the law at all. Number two, we don't need a single Republican in a 50-50 Senate to get this person appointed. Folks, we are losing our country, and we're losing our country fast. Anyway, you're now all caught up to date with the news of the day. And if you like this show, I hope you tune back in tomorrow.